tying up a rather interesting Carrie Stevens streamer today. This is called the Hummer, and it's pretty straightforward in that it's tied like a lot of her other streamers, in that there's a tip to this, a silver tip, and then there's an orange floss body and a silver rib to it. The throat and the underbelly are all pretty standard stuff, but the interesting thing about this is she uses this white tip mallard feather for the shoulder, and it is very, very large. Most of her shoulders usually are a little bit shorter, and they tend to be kind of the overall width of the hackles up here by the head of the fly. This is just way oversized, and it's an interesting example of, you know, her streamers. A lot of them, they all kind of follow the same pattern with different materials and things like this, but every now and again she makes one, and that's kind of, I don't want to say out of left field, but it just seems disproportionate, the shoulder on this being so large. That's the Hummer. I'll get started tying. I'm going to start the Hummer with my hook and the vise. This is a Partridge CS15 in a size 4. I'm going to debarb the hook. And then I'm going to attach my thread. To start out with, I'm using a Danville 3/0 mono in white. And the reason for that is that it is an orange floss body on this, and I don't want to darken up that orange floss. There is a tag on this of silver tinsel and a rib of silver tinsel, but because I do not have tailing material on this, I can mount the silver tinsel onto the hook and then do the floss body, and then apply the tag and the tag, I should say, and the rib at the same time. So I'm going to put down a layer of white thread here. Then I'll attach the silver tinsel and then move forward to attach the orange floss in, apply that orange floss, and then the tinsel for the tag and the rib. I'm using a Danville silver and gold Mylar tinsel in a size 10 for this. I'm going to attach this with the gold side up. I keep advancing my thread down to the point of the hook. That will be the length of the tag. Come back up, and then I will tie in the orange floss. For the floss, I'm just using this is a Danville 4-strand Rayon in orange. I'm going to use all 4 strands here. And attach that to the hook shank. I'm not as concerned about that floss and the diameter of the floss adding a lot of bulk to the hook shank. If I were going to frame this fly, I might extend that floss all the way up the length of the body. So it just gives it a smoother underbelly, you could say, or base to the body. Advance my thread forward to the end of the body, and then I'll apply the orange floss and then the tinsel. with that tinsel tied in, I'm going to leave my white thread on for just a moment, bringing it back down to the end of the body right here. I use the eye return right here on this hook as kind of a reference there. Where I'm going to tie in the bucktail. There is a belly on this, and it's just some white bucktail. Gone ahead and cut mine out and stacked it. You don't have to stack it if you don't want to. For the purposes of the videos, I kind of like them stacked. I think it looks a little bit better. If I were tying a bunch just to go fishing, I probably wouldn't really stack them. I'd just try to get most of those tips evened up. I'll tie those in so they extend just past the bend a little bit. I'll wrap those in, and then I'll trim away the excess. There is a throat on the Hummer, and it was just some white hackles. I'm using some white schlappen for this. It's a nice soft barb for this. I'm going to keep my white thread on. I'm going to tie the first one in straight on the bottom. I want the throat to go down about halfway down the body of the fly, or the belly. What I've discovered is that Carrie Stevens would tie all of this in with white thread. She would even tie in the wings and everything with white thread, and then she would just top it off with the black or whatever color band she was putting in it. I don't know if that's because of, she was tying by hand and it was easier to do it that way, or if it's because of the silk that she was working with versus our modern threads. One thing she would do with the throat is she's trying to cover up some of the thread wraps for the bucktail, and that's part of what the throat is doing here. She would tie in the one right on the center, and then the other two are going to be a little more forward, kind of on the, not on the directly on the sides, but on the upper corners, like this. I should say lower corners, because that's the bottom part of the fly. At least at this point, that's my understanding how she did these. And again, part of that was to use the throats and those hackle fibers to cover up some of those thread wraps, so that the resulting fly, with the wing tied in and everything, you would not have any thread wraps showing. All the more reason to keep the white thread on there, because it would help blend in with the white hackles and the white bucktail. The Hummer has a head with an orange band. It's a black head with an orange band. As I have mentioned in a number of these videos that I've done, I prefer to use as a base the color of the band when I make the heads and when I finish these off, and then put the black bands in. I just think it looks better. So at this point here, with the underside done, our wing is comprised of some Peacock herl and then the actual hackles for the wing. I'm going to attach my orange thread. I'm using a uni thread 8/0 in a pumpkin orange. It's kind of a bright orange. Matches up with the floss pretty good. I want to advance my thread down just to where the end of the head's going to be, trapping in that white thread and the tag of the orange. I can trim away the white thread. Now I have my orange attached, and I can bring this back a little bit to tie in the Peacock herl. Just using some regular Peacock herl. It's 4 to 6 herls is what she calls for. I usually just tie in 4. Sometimes if I want, I'll tie in 5. You just want to get the tips of these fairly even. So my tips out here is what I'm concerned about. Yeah, this one's kind of broken here, you can see, and that's fine. You can just take that off. They don't have to be nice and beautifully tapered. You just want to get these relatively even. They don't have to be perfect. I'm going to tie these in the length of the belly. Trim away the excess. Now I'm going to clean this up a little bit so that I have a smooth platform for tying in the rest of the wing. The rest of the wing is comprised of 4 Grizzly hackles. So each side has 2 Grizzly hackles like this, with a shoulder of white-tipped mallard flank and a cheek of jungle cock. The white-tipped mallard flank is rather large on this, as you can see. The other thing is, I'm not certain that this is how she actually tied it, but when you look at these feathers, the white-tipped mallard flank, you'll notice that there is, let me turn these around for you. There's a broader side to each one of these. This is a little bit broader. This is definitely broader right here. And then there's a thinner side that doesn't have as many of the the black and white tips on the end. I chose to put these in such that this thinner side was on the bottom of the wing and this would be on the top. So it's not exactly uniform on both sides, but it works out. I think it looks pretty nice. As I mentioned in the introduction, this fly is an interesting example of her tying a pattern, coming up with a pattern that has a very, very kind of almost disproportionate wing to it, shoulder to it, by using this white-tipped mallard. So I'm going to match those together, trim away the excess rachis on that. Now I've got what I need to tie in. Sometimes that rubber cement kind of sticks them together a little bit. Take your time with it. I'm going to tie the one on my side here, or the left side, first, tying this in so it is on top of the hook shank, but also on my side. If you look at it this way, it's not on the middle of the top, it's on my side of the top of the hook shank. I want to tie that in so that it's running down the length of the body. Get that good and secured in. Then I can tie in the other one. And that one's going to sit just right next to it. I'm going to make certain that the base, the bottom of that shoulder and everything, that wing is right in place. If you measure this right, the tips will be nice and even. So when you look at this now, you have both those wings tied in on the top. Both of them cover up the very top of that, the eye of the hook, where that wire returns. That's one nice thing about these CS15s. With that return eye, you get a flat area up there to tie these so that they tie on the tops and just run down the sides real nice. Now I will clean up the head space, making the head of the fly. Almost got that done. I think that's just about good enough. We get a little bit more right in the middle. So at this point, I'll put some wax on my thread so that when I do my whip finish here, wax will help that thread stick in there so that when I cut it right here, it doesn't pop out from under itself. And now I'm going to put in the black bands. I'm using some Danville 70 Denier in black. I'll put the rear band in, and then I'll put the front band in. So with the two black bands in, I now have the head divided into three pretty close, even bands of black, orange, and black. I put a little bit of head cement on this. This is a fly-tight head cement that will soak down into those thread wraps. Seal that up real well and secure it, and then I'll come back and I'll put 2 coats of a clear lacquer on this just to help reinforce those thread wraps a little bit. That is the Hummer. Again, a very interesting fly and an example of the fact that even a tire as prolific as she was will sometimes come up with a fly that kind of bends the rules, or at least the expectations of the flies that she ties. That's a big shoulder. So there's the Hummer. Thanks for watching today. Thank you for joining me at the Vise today. I hope you learned a new pattern, at least a tip or trick here and there. If you'd like to help Dress Irons, you can like, comment, share, subscribe, all those wonderful things for the video. You can also head out to dressedirons.com where you can buy flies, tools, stickers, and merch, or you can join a growing community over on Locals at the Dressed Irons Fly Tying Guild. You can also donate to Dressed Irons if you want through the link at the bottom of the description. I thank everybody for their ongoing support, as it really does help the creation of these videos. But what's important is to remember, only fly tying. If you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong.